Hello, today's workout is all about the core. Before I start the workout, I'd like you to go off and grab yourself either a yoga strap if you've got one, a stretchy fitness band will do, dressing gown strap or a belt, just something that's long that you can wrap around your rib cage. Scarf will do as well, that you can feel what's happening with your rib cage, because we're going to have a little bit of a look at what happens when you're breathing. So pause the video if you need to, go off and grab something that you can put around your rib cage. Once you come back, I want you seated comfortably but in balance, so your feet are hip width apart. You can be seated on the floor if you want to with the feet out open, but make sure that your body is balanced from side to side. Watch that you aren't arching your back or slumping back, so you're sitting nice and upright, that chin's retracted, shoulders are back and relaxed. And the first thing I'm going to get you to think about is your pelvic floor. So it's almost as if you're trying to stop yourself weeing. Now please don't try and do this while you're on the toilet. Actually doing this when you're weeing isn't necessarily very good for you, but in this instance I want you to do what you would do to stop yourself going to the toilet, but think about pulling up through towards your head, engaging and release. Engage your pelvic floor. Now I want you to think of your pelvic floor as a sort of an elevator, that there are 3 levels. I'm only asking you to engage it slightly, so up to about level 1. It's not really tight, just a small engagement and release. And what we're doing in our workouts, if you can do that, that is going to help. One, it's going to help with your pelvic floor obviously, but it's also going to help you engage the deep abdominal muscles. And release. Okay. So I'm not going to see anything, you can't see me doing anything, but you should be aware of your pelvic floor engaging. Now we're going to have a quick look at the breath, because the breath will also help to engage the bottom muscles here. And I'm going to get you to think about that in a moment, but first of all I want you to check that you are actually breathing into your rib cage. Now you can do this with your hands if you haven't gone and grabbed a strap, but if you've got something you can wrap around, cross it over. And what I want you to do is breathe in, and think of breathing in the air towards the back of your rib cage here. So aim the air to there, try and keep the shoulders relaxed, and as you breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, you should feel the band come in, or your hands come together as a band. Now if you do a lot of deep breaths you might feel a little bit lightheaded. If that's the case, then ease off slightly. That's the movement, the breath that we want to be doing, quite a nice deep breath. So relax now, take your hands down onto your knees, and let's concentrate on a few deep breaths in through the nose. Through the nose. Out through the mouth. Now as you do the out breath, I want you to be aware of what's going on down in the lower abdomen here. And start to engage those abdominal muscles. Breathe in, and as you breathe out, ready to engage. So you're thinking of bracing those abdominals, or zip and hollow. I like to think of it as if you're doing up a slightly tight pair of trousers and you're just having to pull in slightly to pull that away from the floor, towards your belly, without moving the spine itself. Now this is one you can do on all fours. If you can't comfortably get onto all fours, then by all means stay where you are and continue with that one. But those of you that can, let's come onto all fours. Make sure the knees are directly under the hips, the hands directly underneath the shoulders. You can be down on your hands or up on your fists, whatever's comfortable. Try and keep that back neutral, keep looking down and engage that muscle. So doing exactly the same thing. Breathe in. As you breathe out, think of of engaging the pelvic floor and zip and hollow. Breathe out and relax. So breathe in to prepare and breathe out as you engage those muscles. And release. I'd like you to do a couple more like that. So almost every move we do during the day uses part of our core. With our core, we're not talking just about your abdominals or your pelvic floor. We're thinking about the whole pelvis. Is it stable? Because if your pelvis is out of alignment, if you're slightly twisted, you're going to feel an impact in all sorts of parts of your body that you might not imagine. If you're out of balance, the weight is going to be more on one knee. You're going to wear that knee out faster. You're going to maybe have pain in that knee or your ankle. Also, upper body can be affected by what's going on in the center of your body. So if you're out of alignment, then it could cause you pain. It might not now, but it might in the future. So what we're trying to do is make sure everything is in alignment and that the core is strong enough. I'm not saying super strong. We're not looking for a six-pack. We're looking to have our abdominals, our center of our body, strong enough to keep us out of pain, pain-free as we get older and from day to day. The other part you need to think about with the core is, when we're working the core, is these muscles at the side of the hips. See the people that walk along with their feet out or even one foot turned out. If one foot's turned out, they're possibly got a twisted pelvis. But if your feet are turned out, there's a very good chance you've got a weakness in the muscles here. So we're going to work these muscles as well. I'm going to do exercises on a very simple level. So I'm starting from very basics, and I want you to really concentrate on what's going on with your pelvis, with your abdomen. So don't do the advanced versions in this one. Please stay with the simple version. So I'm going to put my block out the way. You can keep it by you if you need it. I want you to lie on the floor, ideally without anything under your head. If you need something, I'm going to ask it to be no more than an inch block. Feet hip width apart, sit towards the front of your mat, and slowly roll down one vertebra at a time onto the mat. Lengthen your neck. Open shoulders out against the floor and relax your arms. I'm going to ask you to turn your palms towards the ceiling, unless that's really uncomfortable. And I'm going to ask you to think about that breathing again, so breathing in through the nose. To prepare as you breathe out, start to engage that core. Breathe in and breathe out as you float one foot off the floor and drop it back down again. Let's change to the other side, and I want you to be really aware of what's going on with your pelvis, with the pelvic area. Maybe now move your hands on top so you can feel what is happening with the abdomen. We don't want to feel the abdomen popping up. Now, we're not lifting this leg very high, so in theory you shouldn't be. So you breathe out on effort. So as you lift that leg, if you're breathing out, the end of that breath will start to engage those deep muscles, or help to start to engage those deep muscles, and I want you to think about engaging them to lift that foot. Now, if you're finding that that is level, we can start to lift the leg a bit higher, but I'm going to ask you now to move your hands underneath. You should have a natural curve of the spine, so you've got your neutral spine, fingertips underneath, and feel what is going on with your back as you do this movement. So we're trying to keep the pelvis as still as you can as we do this movement. Okay, a little bit more to warm up. Let's go with our leg slides. So here again, be really aware of what's going on with your body. We're just trying to get the body moving equally both sides. a little bit of warm up. Heel slides along the floor. And both of these movements I'm going to move into a harder version that is going to work those abdominals. But you should feel those muscles actually moving as we do this movement. So always we want to try and do the same number on both sides. Okay, coming back, I'm going to ask you to bring your feet a little bit closer now to your bottom. Feet are still hip width apart. Now, if you know that you've got a weakness here and that you find you wobble, I'm going to ask you to put the block, a ball, something small. You don't want a big cushion, but put something between your knees that will help keep your feet and knees hip width apart. I'm going to leave mine out because it is a little bit easier without something between your knees if you're able to keep the tension. By adding this, it lets you use the inner thighs to help stabilise, but I really want us to be concentrating now on what's happening with our pelvis when we start moving. So we'll start by warming up through the area, pushing the back into the floor, lifting up off the ground, breathing in as you come back down, breathing out as you lift, and we're trying to have both sides even. Now again, I'm going to ask you to put your hands on top of your pelvis and the elbows off the floor, so we don't want to be helping ourselves. We want to be making sure the bottom is doing the work here. So again, try and relax your hamstrings. If you find your hamstrings are engaging, possibly bring the feet a little bit closer. Just adjust the foot position until you can do that using your bottom muscles. Okay, so you're aware there as to whether or not you're wobbling. You're trying not to, and you're engaging the core as you do that. Now I'm going to ask you to place your hands on your thighs and do exactly the same thing, and be aware as you do it, are your legs moving out to the side, or are you managing to keep them fairly stable? Breathing out as you lift. You can do one more like that, and then I'm going to ask you to hold at the top, and ideally take your hands across your shoulders. I'm going to keep mine away from there because otherwise I'm going to be banging the microphone. So keeping the hands off the floor, hips lifted as high as you can. Now this movement I see people always trying to do a lot more. I want you to just float the foot half an inch off the floor without this moving, so feel what's going on. It might be that all you can do is lift your heel off the floor. Try both sides. Now don't forget, before you start to move, breathe in to prepare, breathe out as you try and lift that foot a small amount off the floor and ease off. If you need to come down in between and relax the back, please do. Take it back up. Again, feel what's going on with your pelvis. I don't want you lifting that leg really high unless you're in control and that pelvis is still. So I lift my heel, that's fine. Try and lift the whole foot up. Just a small amount back down. I'm wobbling a bit there. So this isn't about getting the leg as high as possible. This is about keeping the pelvis as still as possible. Do one more on each side. Now obviously if you're totally still and you're feeling your hips aren't going out to the side and that your pelvis isn't moving, then by all means lift that leg a little bit higher. If you take it out in front of you, it's going to be the hardest. If you take it up, there's less of a lever, so it should be a little bit easier, but not as easy. So I mean, this isn't very much harder than this. That is because of the length of the lever. And release. Hug your knees into the chest. Give it a little bit of a circle if you need to. Taking the hands behind the thighs. What I'm going to ask you to do now is use your arms as a brace, hands as a brace, and just push the legs very gently into the hands, keeping the back neutral. 20% maximum effort. So we're not pushing really hard, shouldn't see any movement, just a small amount. And release. Taking those feet back down one at a time. Okay, now I'm going to do something a little bit harder to engage the core. Very similar to before. I'm going to ask you to breathe in to prepare. And as you breathe out, bring the legs up one at a time to tabletop. So as if you've got a table with something on the top. Take your arms out to the side, out of the way. And we're going to take the heels, alternate heels down towards the floor, hinging from the hip. So listen to that, it's hinging from the hip. The knee doesn't move, we're not reaching a leg away. We're hinging that heel towards the floor and back up. Again, you might want to feel what's going on with your pelvis. Can you control that? Are your abdominals popping up? So feel what's happening with your belly. If those abdominals are popping up, I want you to go back to the previous version of bringing the legs up and down, up and down. If you're able to, try here. But we want to really control that on the core. So don't touch the heel down if it starts to pop up. So you're feeling, what I'm doing here, I'm feeling in, these are the bony parts of the hips, I'm just inside, I'm feeling what's going on there, and I'm trying to keep that flat and not allow it to pop up. So just go as far as you comfortably can. And again, be aware of what's going on with your lower back. You're really trying to hold this nice and strong. One more each side. And the other. And taking the legs down one at a time. A little stretch of the hip flexors here. So we're going to keep one leg straight on the floor, hug the other knee into the chest. Taking that knee over, other arm out to the side. Stretch out through the hip. Coming back, let's change sides. Bring the other knee in. So you're feeling the stretch in the top of the straight leg, which you'll feel if you've got tight hip flexors. If you haven't, you're probably going to feel it more in your buttock. Taking the arm out to the side, taking that over to the side. So we've done a little bit for pelvic stability, holding it upright. We've done a bit for abdominals. We've looked at our pelvic floor. We want to now work our glute med, so there's the muscle just here, behind the seam of your trousers. Well, it is with the normal trousers, it isn't with mine. So this is the exercise where we have our feet, our bottom, our hips and our shoulders all in line. If you have a towel, you can stick it underneath. I want you to make sure that you're as comfortable as you can be with your upper body. I want you to avoid coming forward. So watch those feet are in alignment. If you can line yourself up with the sofa or the floor, even better. It's an exercise I quite often see people do incorrectly, in that they lean back as they do it. You need to be stacked. Your shoulders are one on top of the other, your hips are one on top of the other, your feet are, and you're going to lift and lower. So I put my hand on top of my hip so that I can feel that my hip isn't dropping back. So oyster shell or clam exercise. Think about engaging the core. Breathing in through the nose, breathing out as you lift, breathing in to return. So you can stay with that version. If you're new to this, then please do. If you've been doing this with me for a while, float both feet off the floor, keeping the knees together, and you're going to lift that top leg up and down. Breathing out as you lift. We're trying to breathe with the movement, or move with the breath even. And remember, with this exercise, if you need to stop, give it a rest. You can always join back in, or just try and do more next time you do the workout. Okay, from there, those of you that have anything left in you to do any more, we're going to lift. You're going to extend that foot out towards me, touch the feet back together, drop the knee down. You might need to change your breath here so that you're breathing out as you take the leg away, because that is the hardest part of the move. Do about 4 of those generally. And release. A little bit of a stretch. And we're going to move round onto the other side. So remember again, you're lined up. The feet, the back of the mat, the bottom is lined up with your mat. Your arm, your head is relaxed and opened up. I like to take my hand onto my hip. You can keep it across and put your elbow on your hip if you prefer, but just watch you're not leaning forward or allowing that hip to drop back. Feet are back in line with your bottom. So if I was lined up with the wall here, I'm lifting the top knee up and down. If I was lying against the wall here, the back of my head, my shoulder blades, and my buttocks and my feet would be touching the wall or the settee. Breathing out as you lift, in as you lower. Okay, you can stick with that if you're new to this. If you're happy to, float the feet off the ground and just lifting and lowering that knee. Bottom knee stays on the mat. If you've had enough now, you can rest, of course, but if you feel you've still got some work left in you, you're going to take that leg out towards me. And again, you might need to change your breath here to breathing out as the leg goes away from you. What I like to do with these, when I do them myself, is I try and do 8 of each of the 2 first versions, and about 4 of these. If you can do that easily, you know your muscles are nice and strong. If you do very many more, it starts to get a little bit boring. Okay, you've had a bit of a stretch. I'm going to do one last exercise for the abdominals, which is single leg stretch. What I'm going to do this time is a little bit different than I normally do. I'm going to do this on your elbows. So anyone who's really uncomfortable on their elbows, you can lie down. Those of you that can, coming up onto your elbows, bring the knees into the chest, and you take the leg away. Bring it in. Feel that in your tummy. Feel it strengthening your hip flexors, and your hip flexors are these muscles over the front of your hips. Trying to keep the feet hip width apart. Feet are relaxed. So I got mine softly pointed. And rest. Bring the feet down to the mat. Just couple of gentle moves to stretch, taking the arms out to the side, turning the palms to the sky and letting the shoulder blades relax into the floor. So ideally the hands are in line with the shoulders. I'm going to bring your hands up, palms facing forward. What I want you to try and do is push your elbows into the floor and allow your shoulder blades to squeeze together and release. Pushing the arms down, squeezing the shoulder blades together and relax. And then open out. If you can keep the arms at that position, please do. If that's not comfortable, then move them a little bit further down the mat. Feet and knees together, dropping the knees over to one side, feeling a stretch through the side of the body. Just hold this. I'm lifting the bottom foot off the floor, the top foot off the floor even, keeping the bottom foot firmly on the mat. It's a lovely stretch through the side of the body. Coming back centre. Let's take it over to the other side. And back centre. Slowly coming up to sitting. Taking your right leg out in front of you, bring your left leg up, take that leg over, right arm hugs the left arm, other arm comes behind you and softly look over the shoulder. This is more about stretching the hip of the left leg, so you're going to feel it around here, but also getting a little bit of rotation of the upper body. Keeping that knee where it is, using it as something to rest against, elbow on the inside. You can either hold your ankle, which is my preferred, or keep the hand up and just rotate gently the other way. This one is about getting some stretch through the side of the body and rotation. So watch you're not letting that drop out. Coming back centre. If that is too much, you can use the hand on the inside as well. Worth remembering that. If your flexibility isn't quite so good, again, left leg straight, right leg this time comes over. So we're stretching through the right hip, bringing the left arm, hugging that leg and just pull. I'm just pulling. You can pull with your hand. I like to put the crook of my elbow around my knee. It depends on the length of your arms and your flexibility. Other arm comes close to your bottom. Sit upright. Try and keep that body as upright as possible. Adjust your foot accordingly so it's flat on the floor until you get that stretch. And then gently look over your shoulder. But it's more about getting the stretch through this hip. And release, take it back the other way, and again, make sure that foot's on the floor. Hold, either hold with your hand, take the elbow on the inside, just use that leg as something to help extend a stretch as you stretch around the other side, feel the stretch through the side of the body. As always, I like to make sure we do some sort of hamstring stretch. Really good one, if you can, is to sit against the wall. I'd like you to put, if you can, your buttocks against the floor and your legs out straight. Easy for me. My posture type means that I have no trouble leaning forward. Some of you are going to find you're not going to make that, in which case you can sit on something. Sit tall. I've got my head, my shoulders very, very cold against the cold wall, and I'm sitting upright, feet are hip width apart, and then I'm going to fold from the waist. I'm not allowing my upper body to move, so I'm not allowing my upper body to round. I'm keeping it upright, I'm keeping that chin retracted and folding forward until I feel it in the back of the legs. Now, for those of you that have really tight hamstrings, you can sit on something, which will help, or you can just ease the knees up slightly. As long as you're feeling that stretch between the back of the knees and all up through the back of the thighs, it's giving you the right stretch. Try and keep the feet relaxed, keep the neck relaxed. And release. I hope you enjoyed the workout. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.